Hey guys, what's up? So in the previous video, we've learned the basics concerning animation in Enscape, and now we are going to learn how we can control the length of the animation and also how we can work with different paths in the same animation. So to control the total length of the animation, we can basically change the total duration here. So for now, our animation lasts 21 seconds, and if we change this length, we are consequently changing also the speed of the animation. So for example, if I change the total duration from 21 seconds to 5 seconds, for example, the whole animation now will take just 5 seconds, so it will be very fast. So if I hit the play button here, you can see that the movement now is much faster than before because the animation now is happening in the same space, but in a shorter time. And if we do the opposite, so for example, if I change now the length of the animation to 50 seconds, for example, and hit the play button once again, the animation now is very slow because now the camera will take 50 seconds to go through the same path as before. So I can stop the animation now, and I will return to the original value, which was something around 21 seconds. So we will keep the same speed as before. Okay, so it's not so hard to change the length of the animation. We basically need to set it here in the total duration. But what if we would like to change the length of a specific part of the animation and not the whole animation? In this case, we need to change a parameter called timestamp. So whenever we select any keyframe, so I will click, for example, here, and this is our second keyframe. And you can see that we have this parameter called timestamp. And we can see that the timestamp of the second keyframe is on the 13th second. So we could, for example, change this value so that the camera can reach this keyframe in a shorter or higher amount of time. So this would be a way to control better the time of specific parts of our animation. However, to prevent some issues or bugs that can probably happen, normally before changing any timestamp, I create a new keyframe here together with our last keyframe. So for example, I'm going to click here in the last keyframe, which is the keyframe in our 21st second. And I'm going to click here in the plus button so that we can create another keyframe. And then I will select this keyframe that we've just created, which is the number 3. And here I will basically activate the timestamp, and I will leave this value of 21 seconds. So basically, we are not changing yet anything here in our animation, but this extra keyframe will help us to prevent any kind of distortion of our total length. Normally, when we don't do this kind of procedure and we change any timestamp, there might be a change in the total duration of the animation. So this is basically something that I suggest to prevent any kind of bug. So now we can try to change the timestamp of the keyframes. So for example, I will choose our second keyframe, and this keyframe is storing this value here of 13 seconds, and let's say I would like to change it for 5. So I will click here, I will change the value to 5. So this means that now the animation will take just 5 seconds to reach this exact point that before was taking 13 seconds. So we will make the camera faster in this first part of the animation. And then it will take 16 seconds until it reaches the final keyframe. So let's take a look and see if this works. And I'll stop the animation and rewind, and I will click the play button here. And now we can see that the animation is faster here in the beginning until it reaches this point. And then it gets slower because we need 16 seconds from our second keyframe to the last one. Okay, so it worked, and this is actually a very simple way to control better the speed of the camera in between the frames. Okay, so there are still other parameters that we can explore that can enhance our camera movement. So I will leave here the keyframe selection, clicking in this button. And if you take a look here, just underneath the total length, we have some controls over the movement of the camera. So this first parameter here controls the acceleration of the camera. So when it is activated, the camera accelerates as soon as it leaves a keyframe and slows down when it's approaching the next keyframe. And this actually creates a more natural movement of the camera. So I normally leave this on. And as you can notice, up to now, we've been using this feature and our camera really has a natural movement. If we turn this off, our camera will have a uniform speed and this can be a bit artificial. The other parameter is called shaky camera, and basically when we turn this on, our camera shakes. And this can be interesting to provide a more natural movement. So in certain situations, you can try and see how it goes. So for example, if we click here and we once again hit play in our animation, you will notice that now the camera is shaking, and this can be actually very interesting to give a more natural look to the camera's movement. Okay, so there is another resource that can be very important, especially if you are planning to work with some kind of video post-production and you would like to have different takes here in the same scene. So if we take a look at our model here, we basically have this camera path that is recording the time and the space where we have specific keyframes. And we can save this information in a specific file and we call this path. So here, if you click in this option called video path, we can create new video paths or save existing ones and also load paths that we have already saved. So I'm gonna save this specific path anywhere in my computer. So I'm gonna call it path01. Okay, so now whenever I need, I can load this path and this will bring information about this specific camera movement. So it works as if it were a take of a movie. So now let's create a different one. I'm gonna click here once again. I'm gonna choose the option new video path. So now I'm gonna delete this path, but I have already saved it, so there's no problem. Okay, and I'm gonna create a very simple one just to test it out. So for example, let's say that we would like to create a take representing a drone shooting here our Villa Savoie. So I will basically choose a first angle. I think here it's okay. So I will create the first keyframe by clicking here. Okay. Then I'm gonna move my camera and I can use the shortcut D. So I will move to the right side. So maybe I can move my camera somewhere around here. I think it's fine. And then I can create my second keyframe. Okay. So as you can see, we've created an animation with 8 seconds and you can change this length if you like, but I will just leave it as it is. And if I click my play button, we have this very simple animation and its information is basically stored here in this new path that I've just created. So we can take a look at our new path and basically we can save it now as a different file from before. So once again, I can click here in video path. I can choose the option save path to file and I can now save it with the name path02. Okay. So now whenever I need, I can change the paths of my animation. So for example, I could load the path number 1 once again, and you can see that we have our previous animation. And now if I load once again the path number 2, we have this last take that we've just produced. So this would be a good workflow to produce different takes of our model in just one file. So you don't need to create different files here in SketchUp to create different takes. You basically need to create and save different paths. And once you render these paths, you can make further edition in the video editor that you prefer.